Greetings, Earthlings. You have arrived at the Strange Phenomena and Mystery Show. I am your host, Raven McMinn, joined by my sisters in strangeness, Kai Greenway.
Hello.
And Nancy Newman.
Hey, everybody.
Today is Friday, March 15th, the Ides of March. Does everyone know what the Ides of March is?
Beware.
Beware the Ides of March, yes. We are so excited today because we have special guests with us. We have back, by popular demand, the Ghostbuster Gals. We have Ronnie Renee.
Yay.
And Laura Lee Mistycah. And we're going to have a lively discussion about ghosts today. So without further ado, we're going to skip announcements and get straight to it.
And I'm posting their bios and their pictures so you guys can, if you missed before, you can put a face with the voice.
Okay, great. All right. Welcome, ladies. How are you?
Great.
Doing
good
good.
to be back.
So far, so good. Of course, it's only 11 o'clock in the morning. So.
Yeah.
Here it is, yeah.
That's true. It's a bit early for you because you guys are up late at night.
We are.
Yeah, we are.
We're night
out. Well, we thought we would talk about some ghost busting tips that you all can do at home for yourself if you run across an earthbound spirit. But first, let's talk about how to become a ghost. I thought that title was so funny in your book, How to Become so tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, just in case you wanted to do that.
Just in case.
That's on your to-do list. We put that.
Yeah. Number one on the list is first you have to die.
Yes, that's an important part.
My book has humor in it.
Yes. Take it away, Ronnie. You're good at explaining this death thing.
Well, that obviously is a prerequisite to becoming a ghost. First, you have to die. But it's how you die, really, that makes the difference. Because if you tend to die in extreme fear or shock or guilt or anger or resentment or hatred or jealousy, ignorance, confusion, or any of the dark, heavy, lower vibrations, you have a better chance of becoming a ghost if that's how you die.
Wow.
So,
if that's your aspiration, that's how you do it.
Because what really happens is, and by the way, Laura Lee and I have very, very different ideas and belief systems on what happens after you die. Okay, but
sometimes they overlap.
Yes, yeah. But sometimes, but not that often. But what happens when you die in those heavy emotions? The spirit leaves the body, and because the frequency is so low, it doesn't get to see the tunnel home. And that's what I call it. It's a tunnel home that opens for everybody. But with those heavier, dark emotions, the spirit doesn't see that. Then the tunnel closes, and boom, the spirit gets trapped, stuck, lost. Because really, ghosts they're lost and stuck between the worlds. And that's why Laura Lee and I took on this mantle as Ghostbusters, but really we are spirit rescuers. We're there to help those spirits find the tunnel home and cross. Okay, and I know you were going to read some of the other ones, weren't you, Raven?
Oh, yes.
The prerequisites
to becoming a ghost.
Yes. I would imagine that the majority of the ghosts that you've run across died tragically or suddenly, like in an accident. But what about the ones that don't know they're dead? How does that work?
Most of them don't know they're dead.
Are they just like relieving in their own time zone, like suspended? Say like a ghost from the 1800s, and to be like in present time. You know, obviously we have cars, we have all these things and inventions that they didn't have back then. And are they just stuck in their own time bubble, or are they aware of us in, you know,
I think
2019?
it's different for everybody. There's no one size fits all. That some of them get stuck in a time loop where they keep reliving their death over and over again.
Oh.
And then some of them don't. They just kind of hang around. Some of them hang around because they felt a stewardship. You know, maybe they left children behind or something, and so they stick around for that. There's many different reasons why they're
get
in
stuck
the position that they're in. Right. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, because, you know, even if they didn't die in fear and ignorance or any of those intense emotions, sometimes people have an excessive attachment to other people or to things, to their house. I mean, we've had ghosts that love their house so much that they stuck around in their house. And if the new owners wanted to remodel, oh my gosh, that's when all the ghostly activity started. You know, things get thrown around, doors slammed, paint cans getting turned over. It's amazing how attached some people are to their things. You know, and another thing we haven't talked about for ghosts getting stuck, and this is kind of difficult, it's like if someone leaves their body, but the people that are still here hold on to them so tight, it can keep a spirit earthbound. The family is in such grief, or, you know, a spouse is in such grief that they just can't let the person go. And that's very, very difficult to a spirit that doesn't have a body anymore, that needs to move on, but doesn't feel they can because the energy is so intense keeping them there. So it just really depends. What we did find is that most of the ghosts don't know they're dead. They do stay in their own little time period so that they don't necessarily pay attention to all the changes that have come, like the new microwave in the house or the TV that, you know, if they died in the 1800s, they don't seem to pay attention. And it's not like they see things like we see things. They see things more in a vibrational way, in an energy way. So even when a ghost is looking at us, they are not seeing us like we see in third-dimensional eyes. They're seeing us in frequencies and vibrations and movement, which is kind of nice if you're in the bathroom, huh?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. That's comforting to know they're not really staring at us while we're in the shower. Okay.
Exactly. That'll make people feel better.
That does. That was my next thing.
But do you think they realize? Yeah, but do you think they realize that this vibrational look to that they have of us, right, is they know that it's another living entity out there, or because they basically are caught in between the all-knowing area that they have to get to, they're confused and they really don't know what's going on around them?
That's such a good question, but I believe from my perspective that they absolutely know it's another living human being when they see and feel our vibration. They just don't see our clothes the way our clothes are, but they can tell that it's another living thing. And that's one of the reasons why ghosts tend to want to get our attention, And the way they get our attention many times is through messing with electronic devices, with lights. It's the easiest thing for them to manipulate. And then depending on the level they achieved here in the physical is how much they can manipulate matter in the in-between worlds. Some ghosts are good enough. They can push things off shelves. They can make things disappear. They can slam doors. And others, they kind of work with the light bulbs and the TV and all the other electronics. But they're getting our attention. That's what they really want, because they know something's wrong. They know they're trapped. They know they're stuck. It's like, hey, look at me, help.
Right, and I think that we phase in and out to them like they do to us.
Yeah.
You don't see the ghost everywhere all the time. You just kind of see it here and there. I think that's kind of how it is with them and us, that they kind of know that we're there, but we're not there all the time. We kind of phase in and out.
So we are the ghosts in their world.
Ours.
Yes. We are the ghosts to them.
Yeah.
We're the scary ones.
We're the scary ones. You said that again, right?
That for sure.
Do the ghosts have any of their senses, like smell, or do they have any of that?
That's a really good question.
So we've never been asked that question.
Yay!
That's a really good question. I don't know. I'll have to ask her.
That's what I was just going to say. I don't know. Next time
we'll get back to you on that one.
Okay.
I don't. I don't think they sense cold or hot.
Okay.
They don't have that kind of sense because they're literally in a different, almost dimension, different field,
right?
As we are. And they see differently, but I don't know if they smell. Wow!
So sometimes they do smell, Ronnie.
They
remember?
smell. Yes, we smell them.
We smell them.
Yes. Those can be very, very stinky. There's a story in the back of our book about a ghost that was very difficult to cross because he was so angry and so violent. And we talk about this guy a lot. He was in control of all the other ghosts at the Amargosa Hotel and Opera House. When it came time to try to keep him away so that we could cross all the other ghosts, Lorelei brilliantly put him in a cryogenetics egg, which is a tool that we use a lot. And when she put him to sleep, she anesthetized him and put him to sleep. She said, "Night, night." He smells like rotten eggs. And we were in the middle of the desert, so there was nothing around.
And it was for quite a while. It wasn't just a second. It was a couple of minutes we could smell this stench. It was not. And that's while he was going to sleep. It took me a while to get him to sleep because he was screaming and thrashing around, but we could all smell that, and he was like literally off gassing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, absolutely. So that's a stinky smell. And then sometimes when we work crossing children, Mother Mary comes to me singing word. No. Sorry, I got caught up. Mother Mary will come and help cross children over, and then we will smell roses.
Roses.
Mm-hmm.
And when we did finally cross this rotten, stinky ghost, finally got him to cross, we also smelled roses. Very cool.
Yes. It's kind of sad that he had that much anger and that much and didn't know what to do with it, and that much stink, and didn't know what to do with it. Guess he didn't know if they don't have smell, so.
Yeah, he didn't know he was smelling up
he was
town.
No, but that's such an interesting point, because what makes a ghost like that? What the heck happened to this person that would make him that way? And that's such an interesting thing. because this particular man, when he was 10 years old, his mother died, and his father just became an alcoholic and was angry and beat him all the time. This was back in the late 1800s, and would treat him like a dog. I mean, they would barely give him anything to eat. He would sleep on the floor. He was beaten with a belt. I mean, on and on and on. So he was worthless. And when he got a little bit older, he wanted to take control because he had no control in his childhood. So he became this controlling, tyrannical maniac. And it wasn't until we were ready to get him across that we even got to see that, because he presented as this horrible, almost demon-like person that was spitting and angry and violent. And then when I brought his mother back across the portal to help bring him to where he belonged, he turned into this little boy, this sweet little boy. So ghosts retain the personality that they had when they were human. So if they were really creepy, tyrannical people and mean, they're like that as ghosts. If they're sweet little grandma, then you have sweet little grandma with the same personality. But the thing to remember is there's no such thing as a good ghost. I say this all the time because we've had people say, oh, yeah, I've had a ghost in my house for years, no big deal, doesn't bother us. No, it is a big deal for two reasons. One, ghosts have a different electromagnetic field than we have, and their electromagnetic field is not that compatible to ours, and so it kind of sucks energy from us. It lowers our immune system. It makes us more susceptible to colds and to things that affect you when your immune system is down. So it's not healthy. And for them, they're stuck. They can't move on. They didn't go back to God, where they belong. They don't get to evolve, do their life review. They don't get to do anything but stay in that same place. That's not a good life either. So there is no such thing as a good ghost.
Yeah. And you talk about how negative ghosts will feed off of our fear and anxiety, and that makes them become stronger, correct?
Yes.
Well, and not just ghosts. There's a lot of other entities that aren't ghosts, but other weird things that feed off of that. So, you know, you don't want to give them a smorgasbord. You know, that's another reason to want to figure out what your challenges are and work through it, so you don't feed all these crazy entities that are floating around just waiting for you to get angry.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there are a lot of other entities other than ghosts that feed on the darkness and feed on the fear. And that's why things go bump in the night. Because when they do, people's first reaction is, oh my God, what's going on? That sets up that adrenaline within their body. And so there's those ghosts, you know, wanting to feed on that. And they make you even more scared if they can. And then there are some entities, not necessarily ghosts, but that like to create chaos in a relationship, that like to throw such negative energy in there that you fight with the person that you're most, you know, supposedly wanting to love and not fight with. And it could be with kids, with parents, with spouses. They just send that negative stuff and create this massive fight, and then they just sit back and feed. It's like yummy to them. So, yeah, a lot of things out there.
Yeah.
Well,
it's
go ahead.
And twisted. It's hard to for people that are kind and compassionate. It's hard to even imagine, but you just have to go, okay, we're going to flip this inside out and backwards, and that's the entities and energies that we're talking about. So I know it's hard to wrap your head around.
But, you know, it sounds a lot like when some people are alive. Well, I mean, they're still alive, but when some people are still in their
body.
human body, yeah, and they're nasty and love to create havoc. But then if you look beneath it, there's something that contributed to their being that way. It's covering up hurt.
Absolutely.
Many, many, many times it's that way. And then there's other factions out there just needling them to keep doing that.
Like energy vampires.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the human dynamic and the way people react to things really does create shifts and changes in personality. But I absolutely believe that when somebody is really mean and being hurtful, it's coming from a place of pain and from a place of hurt. And that's why we can choose not to react that way. And my choice of reaction is compassion. I just see them as a hurt individual. And sometimes, if I really look, and I try not to because it's none of my business, but sometimes I will get visions of what happened to that person to make them that way. And again, compassion and love is the key to all of it.
Mm-hmm.
So when things are going up in the night and you're getting freaked out because it's like, oh my God, there's something here, the first best thing you can do is start to breathe deeply, not hyperventilate now. Breathe deeply. Bring in that energy that's around you. And from my perspective as Angel Girl, I believe the energy of God is everywhere. There's no place it isn't. God is within all things. And every breath that we take, there's God energy within it, because that's what created everything, is the energy of God. So if you breathe with the intention that you're breathing in God, and if you don't like the word God, it doesn't matter, just change it to love, because it's the love frequency that created everything, in my perspective. So you breathe in that energy of love. That's the highest vibration there is. And that alone...
Okay.
You want us speaking up.
I haven't said anything, but okay.
She talks a little quieter than I do, but boy, does she pack a punch. So yeah, it's the love frequency and the love vibration that is the highest of all, and that will help bring you back into a place where you're not feeding the fear anymore. So that's just one thing you can try to remember to do. And then if you can do things like playing nice music, like high-level spiritual music, or lighting candles, or doing any of the high vibrational things that you can do, that will also help mitigate the fear and the frequency of the negativity that's around you.
Okay.
Right. And if you can, all these things that Ronnie is saying will help you get back into a logical perspective, so that you're not letting your mind run amok. Oh, what about this and what about that? And you get more logical, and you go, okay, well, gosh, maybe the cat threw something on the ground, or maybe it's a ghost. If it is, then I'm going to go see if I can help. Instead of getting freaked out and running and hiding, stand your ground and get calm and serene, and get your wits together, and then start doing something proactive to help the situation instead of making it worse. So,
right.
Yeah.
A sense of empowerment, indeed.
Exactly.
Right. Mm-hmm. Have you guys ever had to help a pet, somebody's pet, cross over?
Oh, yeah.
All the time.
Really?
Many, many times.
Wow.
Many times.
I had one recently. She was so connected to this dog, and the dog, it died in such a very weird way, a terrible way. she was driving into her own driveway. She lives out on some land, and the dog always, would be excited and run by the car and bark, because the dog was so happy that she was coming home. And for some unknown reason, the dog just literally went underneath the car wheel, and she ran it over.
Oh.
Yeah. And, I mean, that was like one of the most devastating things you can imagine. And she was so, of course, guilty. And it didn't die, at first. So she took it to the vet, but that didn't do any good. And then the dog finally wound up dying. But within, it took hours. So all that pain and all that suffering that she felt and guilt helped to create this thing that then kept the dog there with her. The dog didn't want to leave. And this is not the first time. She had another dog that this happened with also. She didn't run it over, thank God. But she was so connected with this dog and was right there when it died and was so devastated the dog didn't leave. And so she asked me to help cross both of those dogs. This was like a year apart. And so the dogs and animals, when they do cross, they can, believe it or not, I know it's going to sound weird, but there is now a guide school for animals that they can, just like people, there's a guide school.
Yeah.
When people cross.
Wow.
There's a school that souls can go to that they can come back and be guides. Now, when I first heard that, I thought I heard it from, I heard it from somebody who died and came back to tell me about this. So I never heard of it before, and I thought I was like a little crazy. This was back in the beginning when I was opening up to this. But I had that confirmed by James Von Prague, who to me is one of the foremost mediums on the planet. And I got a chance to be with him and talk to him and have, some time. And I told him this, and he says, oh, yes, of course there's a guide school. And so it's like, wow. And so after all these years that Lauralee and I have been working on this, we found out there's a guide school for pets and animals, right, Lauralee?
Yes, and there's another one that I just became aware of, and I think it's kind of new. And it's different than a guide school. It's called a fixer school, and it's a spirit guide will come and help you through rough times in your life and guide you and direct you. But the fixer school is here to fix the corruption that is running amok. And so there's people and there's animals working together, and I'm hearing now plants that are working together in this fixer school to clean up all the corruption and get things back the way they should have been in the beginning. And so this new fixer school, and I'm seeing the animals that do this and the people are very, very aware and evolved. It's the top of the top as far as I'm concerned of evolved beings that go to this fixer school because they have the education and the background to understand how the whole system works so that they can do things to fix the problems here. So, and I've had a couple of my chickens that are have gone to that fixer school, and Ronnie's too. So, yeah,
That's
there's so much
fantastic.
out there that's cool. There's so many cool things out there.
Oh,
that
gosh.
people just have no clue about. When their animal dies, they just see it as an animal, and sometimes there's so much more. I've had chickens that were actually dragons, and Ronnie had one that was a dragon, and one that was a
Gus, that is kind of funny. A dragon that comes back as a chicken. That is funny.
That is funny. It is very funny. I know.
And they're different. People don't understand about chickens. You have
to have them to understand.
Yeah, it's like every single chicken has its own personality, just like a dog, just like a cat. They have their own souls. They have their own way of being. I have 21 chickens now, and every single one of them is different than the other. And chickens are smart. I mean, Ginger, my dragon chicken, she would come when she was called. She would come in the house. She was absolutely amazing, more evolved than the average chicken is. So, it's pretty cool.
The
average chicken.
Sounds like a punchline to a joke.
It does. So these animal guides, the animal guides, is this kind of the same things like the animal totems and animal spirit guides that the Native Americans talked about? And
yes, that's exactly. And they have to be trained for that. It's like any animal can't say, "Okay, I'm going to be a guide." They have to be trained for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and the totems, as in guides, a lot of times it's the how can I put this? It's the energy of that species.
Yes.
So
yes, they
wolf,
represent the species. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. But as an animal guide, and you can have a totem that becomes separate from the collective of that energy, and become your actual guide. But with the pets and things like that, it's actually the soul of that pet that is there, not the soul of all dogs or all cats or all chickens. So it can be both.
Do they often become the guide for the owner that they previously had?
Yes.
Many times.
And animals, animals can evolve also. And I'm sure, if you think back of some of the animals you had, I had 2 Malamutes. I mean, they were fabulous dogs. One of them was so evolved, he was almost human. I mean, he was telepathic. He was absolutely amazing. The other one was an animal. I mean, she's just an animal. She was very young in her evolution, and she didn't have those abilities that my male had, and she was just an animal. And so, same thing with people. There are people that you can tell they're not very evolved souls, and they might not have done whatever they had done to evolve a soul, because personally I believe that's why we're here in the first place, to evolve our souls, why we go through life after life after life in a quest for evolution of the soul. But animals are the same thing. And here's another freaky thing. People have life reviews when they die and they cross through the tunnel home. They have life reviews. They get to experience their lives and what happened in their lives in a 360-degree panoramic movie. And, Nancy knows about this because Daniel Brinkley, who is the head of our hospice organization, he's been dead a bunch of times and got to experience this. But animals get to do that too. This is so weird. An animal, when it dies, it gets to experience the life that it had. It gets to experience the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if that animal bit somebody, that animal gets to experience the pain of the person or the thing that it bit, just like a human does. And I had to have a dead dog tell me that. And I didn't even think I could talk to dogs or animals at the time. But a client came and asked about her dog, and I had to tell her that dog looked like he was dead. She didn't tell me he was dead, but he was. And she actually knew it. It was a test. I hate those tests. But it was a dog that told me that there was a life review for animals, too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So it's important for them, the animals, it's important for them to cross over to the light, just like it is for humans.
Oh, absolutely. And I have another dog story.
Okay.
My my friend that passed away 10 years ago, she was going through a divorce and really having a hard time, and she was trying to get all of her financial affairs in order, and so she was she was printing off copies of all the documents and everything while her husband was at work. And, just to make sure that when they got a divorce, everything was that she got her fair share of everything. Well, all of a sudden she hears, "He's coming! Hurry and put everything away!"
Oh.
And she looks out the window, and here he is coming, coming into the driveway, and she's like, "Shoot!" So she puts everything under the bed and tries to make everything, the way it was. And she said she knew it was their dead dog that had died. He wasn't a ghost; he was a spirit guide.
Mm-hmm.
And she knew it was him, and it didn't dawn on her later. To her, it seemed as natural as, talking to your friend, as if you had your friend there on the lookout. She did not know he was watching over her and protecting her, and it didn't dawn on her till, later that evening. It's like, well, that dog's dead. How did I hear the dog? And how did the dog talk to me in human language?
Wow.
Because it just seemed so natural, and she said she was in this, I guess, the state to hear the dog, and then to know that it was the dog, and then she says, I felt bad that I wasn't better to that dog. I could have been a lot nicer to the dog. Well, that was a lot. I says, I think you were really good to the dog. You just had a lot going on, a lot on your plate. But that was a very fascinating story because she thought it was logical that the dog would talk to her, and it didn't occur to her till later that she had heard her dog talk.
Well, yeah, because she sensed it and knew it to be so, and then when her logical brain took over,
right? And when the logical brain kicked in, it's like, what the heck just happened?
And it's funny that we call it the logical brain, right?
Right.
Yeah, right. Well, do animals reincarnate into another animal? Like,
yes.
like maybe your dog dies and then sometime later.
I've got a story. Can I tell another story, Ronnie?
Absolutely. I love your story.
Okay, it's another chicken story. Okay. So one of my first batches of chickens got bit by a squirrel. The squirrel went nutso and started going after my chickens and like biting them and hurting them and pulling their feathers out like bad. I had to take her to the vet. And she was convalescing, and she started getting better and better. And I was on a trip, and my husband woke up, and he says all of a sudden he got really creeped out, and he doesn't get creeped out, and like something was wrong. And when you went downstairs where the chicken was, it was in a little box, so we could watch it and take care of it. It had gotten out of the box, and it was trying. You could see that it was trying to get underneath the closet. You could tell that it was scared. It was flattened out, and it was trying to get away from something. And I had these weird entities on my tail for something that I had done that they didn't like. I was helping somebody that wasn't cool with them. And so we called it the terror being. And it was like trying to mess with this chicken. The chicken was trying to get away from it. And it scared it to death. And I talked to the chicken after, and it was in a really weird place, like it was trapped. So I helped her out, and I went after this terror being, and that thing doesn't exist anymore, so don't worry about it. But she asked if she could come back, and I says yes, and she said, well, could I come back as a duck? And I said, well, sure, you can come back as whatever you want. Well, then I got some ducks the next spring, and I ordered 5, and I got 6, and I had to keep counting. I'm like, there's an extra duck here. What's going on? Well, one of them was birthed on my chicken, and it came back as a duck, and I was talking to it one time. I says, well, what do you like best, the chicken or the duck? And she says, oh, the duck. Ducks are way funner.
Oh, my gosh.
So that answers the question. Yes, they can. I think in most instances they come back as their same species.
I agree.
Yeah, in most, but I think that I've heard people say that their dogs have come back as cats. So they can just tell that personality. So I think anything is possible because it's about choice of the soul. What does the soul choose to experience in a physical body in this particular incarnation? And again, it's about evolution, evolving the soul, understanding the purpose of why we're even here. So it's cool.
I have a cat that was a horse.
What's that?
I have a cat that was a horse. He must have been a horse. Because he paused before he'll drink the water, like a horse will kick and then drink. He does that every day, every time he goes to the water bowl. It's hilarious.
I love it.
And I thought, cats aren't supposed to do that, are they?
They do that, and they come back to you. My horse that I have now, who the minute I saw a picture of him, I looked at that picture, I looked at his eyes, said, I have to have that horse. He wasn't for sale. I didn't care. I had to have that horse. And so I called the people up, and the man said, I don't know, he's not for sale. I don't know. I said, you convince her to sell him to me. He must be mine. And so it worked. I mean, I paid a little more than I would have. I didn't care. And so I have this magnificent animal that we are so connected, soul to soul. And I had a reading done, a woman by the name of Karen Anderson, who's local here in the Spokane area. She's an incredible animal communicator. I had a reading done with her, and she told me that, yes, this horse has been with me through many, many incarnations, and there is such a strong soul connection. So, yeah, it happens.
Oh, love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes you feel more connected and more, when an animal dies, you're just so devastated. But when you can kind of see the bigger picture, kind of see what their next step is and what they might be doing to come back and hang out with you, it makes a huge difference in your healing from the trauma of their loss. And it's, when you get an animal, you just, it's inevitable. At some point in time, it's going to die. So you just have to, this really helps you with that grieving process and opens up your mind to more possibilities of what our animals are really about. They're just not these lowly life forms here. They are like,
right.
I have animals I'd rather hang out with than people.
Yes.
I think we're all guilty of that one.
Yeah. Indeed.
Oh, well, we have a question in the chat room.
Okay.
Liliana wants to know, she says, hi, ladies. Do people come back as animals?
That's a really interesting question, too. I know that many, many moons ago, when we were first incarnating on this planet, that many of us incarnated as animals. I have a friend that remembers an experience as an elephant. I remember being a whale and a dolphin. And then there was a point in time that we were able to merge our consciousness with animals. So we had human bodies, but we were able to take our consciousness, merge it with an animal, and experience that in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I have not experienced a human soul coming back in the form of an animal myself, but that's not to say it can't happen, because I personally believe with God anything can happen. If it's something that you really, really are choosing to experience after you've crossed from one life and you've hung out in the big world of God, because there are many, many, many levels there. If it's something you really chose, I think it could occur. I just think it would be really frustrating. Just like it's frustrating to be born.
Right.
You're a baby, you forget everything, and then the communication is really difficult for a while. That's why some of these new kids coming in, these crystal kids, they're telepathic. And if you're sensitive enough, you can actually communicate with them telepathically. It's very, very cool. So,
right.
Well,
yeah,
I think
it could happen.
Yeah, I think that also what may happen more than people might think is that you can, if you're a spirit guide or whatever, and you need to do some kind of mission, you could walk in and out of an animal's body for a temporary. You could go in and like
Commune?
in my book that talks about walk-ins and shove-ins. Well, you can walk into an animal just as easy as you could a person if you're on a mission doing something that requires that you collaborate with that species or that particular animal or that family. If you need to get some intel into what's going on, that you could walk in and out of an animal's body. And so, I agree with Ronnie. There's no rules. Every time you think there's a rule, then there's the exception to the rule, and
the way to break the rule.
Yes, right. And some things happen more than others. Like some phenomena is happening way more now than it was 10 or 20 years ago when we first started doing this work. And so it just depends on what's going on planet Earth at the time, and anything and everything can and will happen. That's kind of how I see it.
Yes.
Have you ever run across the ghost of a Bigfoot?
Yes, we have.
Have you
do
really?
tell.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Wow. Oh, you got to tell us.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know if this one's in our book. The major part of the story is in the book, but we were working on, it started with a little boy who was about 4 or 5 at the time. They live in British Columbia. And he was a crystal. I think he was the first crystal we ever worked with, so this was quite a few years ago. And this family bought a cabin on Christina Lake. And oh my!
and this is up in Canada where it's nice and cold and snowy, right?
Yes.
So this would be where they would hang out at one time, right? Okay, go on, Ronnie.
No, you know what? I almost don't even. Sometimes it's funny. We do ghost bustings, and we're in such a different state of being that when we come back into this reality, half the time we don't remember what the heck happened.
I'll tell you what I remember, and you can fill in the blanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we're cleaning up this lake because it was just full of heavy, dark, nasty. There was some really bad stuff that happened in that lake, and it was affecting the family. So as we were cleaning it up, I saw these amazing benevolent spirits that had been trapped at the bottom of the lake. And as they came up, they had this white fur. They look like little beasties, you know?
Yeah.
Big beasties. And I'm like, what is this? And one of them told me that back in the day, they were killed for their fur, and then the carcass thrown in this lake.
Oh.
And I'm like, holy crap! And that really made me mad. That was happening, but there was a lot of them in there, a lot.
And the alien stuff too.
Yeah, there was weird alien stuff in there too.
We call it WA.
WS, weird stuff.
Wow.
Well, I just put your website back up and wanted to let everybody know that they can purchase one of your books from the website. Is that right? You still have one?
And
okay.
For our listeners here today,
if
they get a book from us, it won't happen on Amazon because we have no control over what happens at Amazon. But if you buy one from us, it will be personally signed, and we will send a set of house grids. They're little teeny tiny grains of sand sized grids, but they're as powerful as a big boulder. And this is what we use to grid houses before we do a clearing. We won't do any kind of a ghost busting unless our clients have put this little 5-pointed grid, one on all 4 corners and one in the center. And when you put the center stone in, you give the grid the intention of what you want to have happen in the house or the building, truth and justice and compassion and whatever you want to put in that. And then when you set the grid, you can feel the energy just go, and it just like stabilizes.
Wow.
So we're gonna include a free set of grid rocks with every purchase of a book from this show, this wonderful show that we're doing with these wonderful women. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, these rocks are tektites, meaning they're not from this planet. So they may be small, but they're mighty, just like me.
And they need to be sure to mention in the comments on your website that they heard about it from this show.
Yes.
And we will do that for you.
All right. Wonderful. Gosh, I can't believe it.
What can't you believe?
Time is almost up. No.
Up. Oh, time's up.
It's
That's
just
we have so much fun working with you guys.
Oh, thanks. So, let's see. How much time do we have left, Britt? Okay. There you go. Minute and a half.
Much in that, yeah.
Oh, well, Robin, God, another MHM. That's a Mad Hatter moment that we've just coined. So, Raven, were you going to take us out? You want me to?
Oh, somebody take us out.
Dead silence.
Okay. Here we go. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for
You are welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. We enjoy
Thank you for being
we enjoy
here.
the people listening to this show. We're thrilled. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And we'll have you back for sure as long as you're game. So,
Yeah.
Hi, can you think of anything else we need to say?
No, I think you covered it. We've got the connection so that people can buy their book. And we thank you, ladies, for always contributing a lot of information when you come and visit us.
Absolutely.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Okay. Well, everybody, the Sisters of Strangeness are signing off for another show. Come back next week, and we'll have a fun replay for you, but we'll still interact with you in the chat room, so that can be kind of fun, too. So, goodbye, everybody. Thanks again, Laura Lee and Ronnie. It's wonderful having you, and we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.